Good afternoon, world. It's moments past noon in Waxahachie, Texas, deep in the heart of the Lone Star State. Today is the 3rd of June, and this is, believe it or not, the 67th episode of Grit and Good News. As always, we're broadcasting live from our palatial studios in downtown Waxahachie in the shadows of the historic Ellis County Courthouse. I'm your co host as usual. Our man Sam is at the board capably as usual. And that does not look like my co host Scott Brooks to the right of me. And I know it's not because that is my aunt and godmother, Elizabeth Etoll, and she's our special guest today. Say hi, Elizabeth.
Hello, everyone.
Scott and I have often talked about having guests more often, and we don't have enough of them. And when I tell you about why she's here in town, I think you'll think it's an exciting reason for her to be here. She's a big follower of our show, and she was willing to come down here and talk a little bit. But we can't get this studio set up in a fashion for three. Ultimately, we may have to find a way. So Scott is waiting in the wings, back in the office, watching, and when Elizabeth and I are finished speaking, then we will he will come over and she will vacate the ski seat. Scott will take it, and she will be here for the remainder of the show, off screen and ready to do today in history with us. So the reason you are here is to attend the Van Cliburn piano competition.
Yes.
Yes. And it's in Fort Worth. It's been going on for a few rounds, and we're going to attend two two rounds um, tonight and tomorrow night. And by the way, did I mention that you're my godmother? She is my godmother. She's my aunt on my mother's side. She's my mom's sister, and she is my godmother, and she is the godmother to my daughter, Marianne Elizabeth Lynch. And tonight at the Van Cliburn, we will have Georgia Gwynn, who is my goddaughter. So I'll have a pretty woman and a pretty young lady. Uh, I'm gonna have the two prettiest women sitting with me, and it'll be great. And and here's the deal about the Van Cliburn. It's every 4 years in Fort Worth. It's a huge cultural event over there, and Elizabeth has never been to a Van Cliburn, but she is a huge appreciator of classical music. Tell me about some of the things you've gone to and seen over the years.
Whoa.
Whoa, that wasn't on our list of things.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
Um, well, we have a wonderful festival in the little village that I live in central New York. And so we have that type of music quite often
yeah,
it runs during the month of August.
but you've seen a lot of classical music in your life,
Yes.
and when I always kind of bragged about it and said, it'd be nice if you came down sometime for
That's
it,
right.
and she always said, well, yeah, sometime, and then we were together this past summer, and we said, let's do it, and so we looked at, I mean, we got tickets the day they went on sale.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
so,
We were each on a phone
yes,
calling into the box office and discussing the seating.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
Um, so she came in yesterday afternoon. Syracuse is the closest city to fly out of. Syracuse has never been great for connections, and she came through Detroit on Delta and showed up here in the afternoon. I gave her a little tour around town, stopped by, had a little time at the house with my wife, and then what'd you do last night?
well, I filled in. Rita's Bunko group was missing one person. So I, never having played Bunko, figured, why not? So I went and played, and I actually had three Bunkos. So I ended up with a prize, and there were beautiful prizes. And so that's what I did. I,
And go ahead.
well, I was going to say, I know how to throw the die, but when it came time to move, I just waited for somebody to tell me,
Right.
stay here or come with me or go separately somewhere else. So,
Right. And then you mentioned to me that the senior center in Atlas has different activities, and Bunko's one of them. Has this fueled your interest in maybe joining a Bunko group up there?
well, I wouldn't be able to really join because I don't live there year round, but
Right.
I would consider dropping in or maybe being on a standby list.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my family, the six of us, the brothers and sisters, and my mom and dad always had a endearing nickname for Aunt Elizabeth. Um, my dad, quite the linguist, just decided, Elizabeth has a gazillion different nicknames to it, right?
Yes.
But he invented the name of Beeth, which is the back hat. It's like Beth, but it's the back half of Elizabeth, and so we call her that. But really, we only we only use it in our family. And my cousins in Syracuse don't use it. Nobody else uses it.
They don't know about it.
They don't know about it. We haven't actively promoted it, right?
But he developed it because he would say affectionately, Betha Beth,
Beat the Beth,
Betha Beef.
Beth the Beef.
And that's how it got started.
Um, so you're Lebanese on both sides, right?
Yep,
You got the Etoll on one side, which is your last name. You got the Latif on the other
that's right.
side. We're going to talk a little bit about the family history on my mother's side, because without this history, you wouldn't be with us today, obviously, right?
Right.
And so my grandmother was born Josephine Etoll on the 4th of August of 2004, and
Excuse me, she was Josephine Latiff.
Josephine Latif at the time. That's right,
Yeah.
and then she became Etoll later
Uh-huh.
on. Thank you.
Right.
And when I went up to Syracuse for her 100th anniversary celebration, I had a special gift made by a jeweler friend that I have, and it's a small pendant, and it has 1904 on it, and which is her birth year. And when she passed away, and my mom was with my aunt and her brother, and they were dividing things up, you know, that automatically went to mom because they knew where it had come from. And so it came into me, and Rita wears that around her neck
Oh,
every day. And it thrills me
that's
that she
sweet.
has it. And
Yeah.
um, when I was clearing out things, when both my parents had passed, I came across this passport here. This is an old U.S. passport. It has her listed at 5'2". I never knew that she got above the 4'11" mark, but people do shrink over the years.
That's true.
Uh, and it's connected to a story that touches me, because it shows what a woman she was, and that it carried through to her strong daughters. And so in 1926, when she was 22 years old, she went with her parents on an ocean liner to Zahli, Lebanon, to meet the man that her parents wanted her to marry. And arranged marriages were a very common thing
Mm-hmm.
back in that time.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what she said at the end of this trip? I don't think I want to marry that man. And can you imagine? Can you imagine that boat ride home? Can you imagine?
That's a good point.
And I just thought that story has always touched me, and she's such a strong woman. And so she returned with her parents to Syracuse, New York, where she met Ernest Etoll, and they married. And he moved. Uh, they moved to Ohio, and he was about to start the Oberlin Business College.
Mm-hmm.
They had three children. My mom, the oldest, Ernest Jr., and then Elizabeth, the baby daughter. And he passed away. And when he passed away, uh, Josephine and the three children moved back to Syracuse, where there was plenty of family support. And um,
Slight correction. Ernie is not Junior.
I wondered about
Yeah,
that.
because Dad name was EEE,
E.
and Ernie is Ernest Joseph.
Thank you for that correction. But despite that, they called him Sonny.
Yeah,
And,
that's
and,
right.
and, and I love the nickname Sonny. Sonny is always named after the father. And so and incidentally, he's my godfather.
Yes.
And so I hit the gold mine on godparents. I
Uh,
will tell you that. Uh,
yeah.
so she was raised most of her life in Syracuse. She was college educated, and then she was hired by IBM and
Hmm.
moved to Atlanta, right?
That's right. Hmm.
And then um, tell a little bit about your business career and how it progressed?
In those days, unless you had specialized training to be, for example, a systems engineer, as a woman, you generally were in administration, secretary, other functions, some accounting functions, and so on. And as the years progressed, I remember sitting there and thinking, look at Sam over there. I can do what he's doing. And eventually that took hold, and I was promoted into a professional job. And that's how that all started. And at that time, IBM was under a requirement to retain certain records. And there was a function called records management. So I became involved with that. And I traveled a lot out the country, going into branch offices and giving presentations on how they should be dealing with their records. Okay.
So at that time, were you getting any pushback or resentment about being a woman in that position?
It was not apparent if it was there.
Okay, good.
Right, right.
Although they're one of the most professional, well-run companies always, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, and then following that, I went into quite a few years in a security function, both physical security of the building and security of records, which now, of course, is all, for the most part, digital. But we were dealing with paper then.
Yeah.
Okay. And then after that, I went into software marketing and was involved with, for example, product announcements, some small, some large. The larger ones were generally at 590 Madison Ave in New York, and they were big deal, press, deliverables, and all that. So after that, I had an opportunity to retire. So,
And when you get an opportunity to retire from a big company, you got to take it. And so few companies have got pension retirement plans, and you've enjoyed your retirement. You were in rental properties, residential rental properties for a while
oh,
too,
that's
right?
true. That
Yeah,
was just kind of a sideline.
yeah.
And I was the landlady at times. That was not my favorite thing to do. But even,
Sure.
but I'm totally out of that now.
And you did see great changes over the years at IBM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh,
Um,
uh-huh. Is it totally equal? Well, I don't work there any longer, so I don't know really how that's being dealt with. When I left, I wouldn't say it was totally equal.
yeah. So long time in Atlanta, a lot of friends, a lot of good times. The place that I went to, have you lived in that same place for most of that time?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Hmm.
And it's in the Buckhead area, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I remember some conversations with you in recent years about some concerns you were having about changes that were happening. Are things getting settled down? You were a little concerned about security in that area, which is a very upbeat,
Yeah.
highbrow
Yeah.
part of town.
Yeah. Yeah. I think things have improved, but remember, I spend the minority of my days there.
Right.
I spend the majority now in Skaneateles, New York.
Yes.
So,
Which we'll talk more about here in just a second. Tell me, we talked a little bit about this yesterday. Tell me about when you were a young girl and falling in love with Scanny Atlas,
well, I grew up in Syracuse, as we've already
which is what,
discussed.
22 miles from
Right,
Scanny Atlas,
right.
southwest.
And starting at the age 7, I went to an overnight camp named Lourdes Camp right on the lake at, I think it's the 16-mile point. And I loved it there. I went there for 10 years. And as I recall, the boys went separately in July and the girls were there in August. And much to my surprise, more recently, when I was on one of the boats, tour boats on the lake, we got down to Lourdes Camp, and the campers are known for doing the Lourdes dance right on the dock there. And there were boys and girls together. I was totally shocked. Had no idea.
Now, this was one of your first years at 7 or one of your subsequent years?
Oh, very recently.
Oh, very
I mean, I
recent.
don't know when it changed,
Oh,
but it has
and then
changed.
then you went there every summer, like forever and ever, into your teenage years and stuff.
You mean the camp
Yeah, the
or?
camp.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I started at 7 and ended at 17.
So you always said, someday, someday I'd like to live here, right?
It was probably in the back of my mind.
Yeah,
Yeah, uh-huh,
yeah. And then you bought a first place, and now you bought a second, and you remodeled that almost completely. I've seen
right,
both of those places.
yeah.
Uh, and
Well, let's not forget I put a new foundation in that house as well.
okay, that's
That wasn't part of the
one of
plan,
those
but
little things that you
it went
didn't
down.
know when the inspector never
How do
caught
we
that.
find out? Well, we took off a panel in the basement, which was a decorative panel covering the foundation itself, and that one panel was completely filled with tree roots.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and then there was a horizontal crack all the way across, and then because it reached the corners, then they had to check the sidewalls, and that was all cracked. So it was quite a process.
Should we tell the hair story? But before you do, I want to preface it by saying, um, I have a son, Carl, who at a young age, I said, "Hey, Aunt Elizabeth is coming into town," and so he was 5 or 6, and he'd met you a time or two, but he wanted to make sure he knew who you were, and he said, "Well, that's the one with the big hair, right?" And I said, "Yeah, that's the one with the big hair." And that big hair was exactly like this, but 2 or 3 times bigger and and almost all black
Yeah,
at that
yeah,
time.
yeah,
So to tell you a
exactly.
little story about here in
Yeah.
town.
Okay, so about a year ago, I was coming down the escalator at Galleria in Dallas, and I felt something kind of brushing the back of my hair, and I thought like a bird flew by. And I turned around, and the lady, no apology, she said, "It's a lot softer than it looks." What do you say to that?
uh, Sam's gonna. We'll talk a little bit more about Scanny Atlas in a second. I just wanted to, and one of the things that we've got. You got a picture of that Afghan?
I don't remember that it's there.
Okay. Uh, she she's quite an accomplished knitter, and she's known for hand knitting Afghans and giving them to babies of people that she
Right.
knows, and I think for a few strangers over the years
Oh,
too.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
uh,
because I donate them. The ones that I don't have an immediate use for, I
yeah.
donate them in Atlanta. Yeah.
So my mom knitted a little bit, but did she crochet more?
No, I don't
She
think
was
so.
knit, and when she used to do that, I'd call that rubbing your needles together. Is what I
Right.
called that. Um, and Elizabeth has a great love for traveling, and a little bit about your 5 trips to Lebanon, 3 with your mother and 2 by yourself.
Right. Uh, of course, seeing family there is so important, and I'd love to visit them again before time goes by too much. And one of the memorable trips was for the wedding of the daughter of one of our cousins. And that was quite a spectacular wedding. I do remember at the end of the reception, the bride and groom were up above the crowd up on a wall. And as they opened a bottle of champagne, the fireworks went off. It was,
That's doing it right, huh?
yeah, it was really special.
Yeah.
So,
Most recently, you've been to 2 European river cruises
yes,
sandwiched around a trip to Iceland.
yeah,
What can you tell me about any of those
yeah.
people?
Well, Iceland was very interesting and went with our cousin Sue.
Yeah.
And
God bless you, Sue.
we flew into Reykjavik a day early and just enjoyed looking around. It's a fairly compact town, so we enjoyed the shopping, of course, and then got on the cruise boat, which is Windstar, and went around the island and just got off every day and did excursions on in different towns.
And
So,
you've been to a whole lot of other
yes,
places.
I have.
You want to just name a few more of them, or it's a long list?
Well, I've been to Cuba, which was one place that I wanted to
Yeah.
visit, and I've been in the Middle East quite a bit, and in Europe as well. I've been to Hong Kong, uh, Thailand. Uh,
And none of that was on the IBM dime. That was all.
oh, that's right.
That's all on the
That's absolutely
Okay.
true.
And then you told me you were going to reveal on this show what is your next trip.
Yes, I know.
And I've been trying to not bug you on it and just
Yeah.
be patient. Where are you
Well,
going?
with Sam's help, we're going to display the countries that I'm going to. Okay. Is it on there? Oh, I'm not looking at it. Okay.
Oh,
Oh, sorry. um, in 1991, for history buffs, and I hope that's the history question today, by
I
the
doubt it.
way,
Well, we'll see.
um, USSR collapsed, and two of the 15 countries within the former Russian Federation are Georgia and Armenia. Now, Georgia's capital is Tbilisi. Tbilisi and Atlanta have been sister cities for decades. So I've known the name Tbilisi.
Hmm.
I know some people in the Skinny Atlas area who are from Tbilisi, and I know a vocal group that just performed there. And Armenia, we've had friends in the Syracuse area who are Armenian for many, many years. And wanting to go to new places, that's where I'm going in October.
You going solo?
Yes.
Nice. She's not afraid to take a trip by herself.
Well, I'm
No.
meeting, I'll be part of a group which will be maximum of 16. So right now, I don't know how many people there'll be. So could we show that upper left shot of Skinny Atlas? Have we shown it already? Oh,
They can see.
oh,
They're
okay.
seeing all six at once, right? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I get it.
Yeah, we don't have the technology for us to see that on our screens, but they can.
Okay.
Um, so I tell you, as you know, I do like to write poems, and I write them about a lot of things. And what I found myself doing, I call it plagiarizing myself. But it's okay if you're using your own material again.
Right.
And one of the favorite poems, it's kind of a trademark poem for me when I talk to anybody in this town, is called Waxahachie, and I model this poem for you based on the Waxahachie poem, which starts with Waxahachie is a name hard to pronounce, and on every syllable a mistake will likely bounce. The wax is spoken walks if you say it right, but it's wax to the lax. They've no linguistic might. And so I just decided, I think I could convert that into a nice little Scanny Atlas poem. And so it goes like this. Scanny Atlas is a name hard to pronounce, and on every syllable, a mistake will lightly bounce. The SKAN is pronounced scan, but the locals call it skin. Mirroring them will make you a fan. 11 letters is quite a win. This is an Iroquois name, an Indian tribe of great fame. If you have trouble pronouncing it, give them the blame. It's both a village and a town, a quaint hamlet of some renown. If you're not sure which one you're in, don't let it cause a big frown. Scanty Atlas Lake is one of 5 finger lakes. They resemble a hand, for heaven's sake. The smallest lake looks like your pinky, yet this smallest finger is far from dinky. 16 miles long and a mile and a half wide. Surely this lake is a source of pride. Look at the pride on her face as I'm reading this. All kinds of boats harbor here, off on jaunts, far and near. Some people stay all winter. Others prefer a southern winter stay. Either way, it's pretty here every day. And so I'm going to give you this, as we say, suitable for framing.
Oh, okay.
And this is how we do the Waxahachie one with
Right.
it. Yeah, we'll talk. Maybe we can get
Okay.
something superimposed,
Sure.
and you can sell this
Sure.
at the little shops up in town.
Oh,
Because you
always an angle.
no, that just be for a little side jingle for you. That's so that's all I've really got for now. You wanna anything else you wanna add?
I was thinking the other day about being Lebanese and how proud I am of it,
Amen.
and how often I'll read somebody's name and I'll say, "Oh, that's a Lebanese name." And so one of my friends said, "Well, how do you know that?" I said, "Well, if you saw the name Margaret O'Brien, you'd say, well, that's Irish."
Yeah,
It's the same thing. That's
yeah,
how I know. I just know.
yeah. And I neglected to say um that you are looking forward to when you can make another trip to Lebanon.
Absolutely.
And hopefully that you know I'd like to go sometime too. And boy, do we like our Lebanese cooking, and boy, could my grandmother cook. And I'll close with this comment. Whenever she'd make a big Lebanese meal or a small Lebanese meal, she would always say, "Remember, you're eating the food that Christ ate." It's pretty strong endorsement right there. So with that, we're going to
Okay.
shuffle our
All
chairs.
right.
All
Thank you
right.
for having me.
And Scott will be coming in. Um, can
Want me to
she
go
get
around?
that way or better coming this way? Can you
Can I
come?
come around?
Yeah, watch all your cords. You ready?
All right.
Okay, now look who we got back.
Hello, everyone. We went from pretty to
Good enough.
pretty bad. Thank you, Elizabeth, for being here and for sharing with our viewers all of that information. It's always nice to have visitors, and we're grateful. So enjoy your Waxahachie stay, and certainly tonight and tomorrow night, both you're going?
Yeah,
Yeah.
back to back.
It's a lot of piano stuff, huh?
It is a lot of piano stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Tinkling the ivories, yeah.
So Jeff did his intro as always. Today is our 67th episode, and it's 67th, right?
It is
Yeah,
67.
so I don't know a
It's gonna
single
be
number about
it's gonna be a short list today.
who is it?
Um, well, we had nobody in the football world of significance and nobody in the baseball world, and really only one in hockey, and that is a guy named Matt Pacioretty. He
Oh
played for
yeah,
a long time for the Canadians. He was drafted in the first round. It started in 2009. Played with the Canadians till 18. He did wear the C part of that time, not all that time, and now he's still in the league
Vegas, right?
with the
No,
Maple Leafs.
Maple Leafs. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, very good. All
and
right, few other quick updates. We've got the NBA final start Thursday night against the Oklahoma City Thunder
Who do you
against
got?
the Pacers that wear that dumb shirt that says "Yesers."
Yes, sir.
That's the
Yes,
stupidest.
sir.
Anyway, I got Oklahoma City in at least 6, if not 5.
Okay.
All right.
Who do you think will win, Jeff?
you know I'm not very strong on hoops, as I've said many times, but I know Oklahoma City didn't have the best regular season record.
No, the Oklahoma City was, I think, the best team in
No, I
basketball.
think
That's
the Cavs had a better regular
Oh,
season
yeah.
record, but
okay.
they're the best
Okay.
Yeah.
probably.
Um, I'm going OKC.
Okay. I'm
Sammy?
I'm going Pacers in 6.
Yeah, well, you ain't too bright.
Well, we'll see.
So we got that going on, and then
You
tomorrow
know,
night,
he's got your blood in him.
well, that's the point I'm making. I know he's not too bright. That's um. So tomorrow night the NHL starts its playoffs, or I think the Stanley Cup.
Yes.
And we've got the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers, which is a repeat of last year, which I hate repeats. It's boring, except this year it's time for Edmonton to exercise some payback. And so I'm hoping that Edmonton will win this one. And I say Edmonton in 6.
And I am also pulling for Edmonton. And if they need 7, that's okay because they're going to have the
They're at
home
home.
ice.
Yeah, that's
And when
right.
they lost to Florida last year in 7, Florida had home ice,
Yeah,
so they won the last game on their ice.
yeah.
And I think at this point of the year, I do think it means a lot. So I got the Oilers.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Sammy,
Oilers in 5.
you don't have a clue what he just said something. He didn't even he just said it like. All
I
right,
like it.
so
I like
a
it.
couple other things I want to. Well, we've got the College World. Well, Super Regionals are this weekend in NCAA baseball. We have in the College World Series because we certainly want to include women's sports. We have, which is an exciting thing up in Oklahoma City, every year, the College Women's Softball World Series, which starts tomorrow night, I believe, or it may start tonight. But it's Texas against Texas Tech.
And boy,
Did
can
you?
those pitchers bring it.
Yeah, the fastest pitch ever in softball was thrown by a Tennessee pitcher at 79 miles an hour. which translates to well over 105 in
because of the
baseball.
shorter
Yeah.
distance. Yeah.
So we've got that going on, and a couple other things I want to share with you. We have our final story, our final part in a three-part series on Hannah Dillard, which has been, from all indications, a pretty compelling story for our readers. It's a story about a young lady who's now 34, 35 years old. She sits in prison in Oklahoma at a Warrior Prison Facility just south of Tulsa. It is a case that was tried here in Ellis County that we have followed. Some friends of mine tried that case and were with a judge, and we have been invested in it from a standpoint of a sentence for a DUI, DWI that resulted in a crash that injured 5 people in another car, a sentence of 12 years, which comparatively is, in my opinion, these are my words, not anybody else's, but I think it's a railroad kind of sentence. And so we are addressing it, but we wanted to tell the story about Hannah, who she is, what happened, what she's trying to do with her life, what she will do with her life. So the third part is tomorrow, and then we'll follow that up with 2 columns that I'll be writing. One will be next Wednesday, and then the following Wednesday will be the last one. And then we'll keep you informed as to where we go from there. So uh, that's the latest.
We
There's a
got a
whole bunch
couple
more to
other
talk about.
small things you got, and I want to ask you on this one, on the Boulder attack, and I hadn't
Yeah,
followed it closely, but you know how you get so many headlines over your phone,
right.
they talked about some star athlete being all over AOC about comments that she made about the Boulder attack. Do you know anything
I
about what
don't.
that's all about?
I don't. I may have seen a reference to it, but I didn't read it, so I don't know.
Okay,
It's AOC. Who knows what was said?
right.
But that attack is just absurd, and our media in this country continues to give cover to things like this, and won't, in many respects, aren't calling it a terrorist attack, despite the guy attacking those who were supporting Israel, Jewish people, with makeshift Molotov cocktails, which in essence what he had. And they showed pictures of him just before he was arrested. He's got a spray bottle of presumably what is alcohol. He's got another bottle, and then he had either matches or lighter. I think it was matches, such that it served as a blowtorch or whatever you call those things, and lit people on fire in broad daylight in Boulder, Colorado. It's incredible, and it needs to be called for what it is. The guy is facing 620 something years in prison, and most likely the death penalty. So we're in Texas, and in Texas we have a what do you call it, fast food line for the death penalty here.
Right.
But if there's anyone that deserves that, it's certainly this guy. And then the other thing we'll mention is, I don't think we mentioned it last week, but the Frisco teenager who murdered another Frisco teenager at a track meet in broad daylight back in April will be tried as an adult. That's Carmelo Anthony. So despite all the hysterics and the drama and the whatever you want to call it, with press conferences and such, he's going to be tried as an adult, and he should be tried as
Well,
an
he's
adult.
17, and it's not unprecedented at all for them to make the judgment that at some
Yeah.
cases they're going to go that way.
Well, and they should. So there you have it up on our updates. And did I miss anything? I don't think so.
It's the beginning of June, and tomorrow, Tuesday, we'll have a little ceremony
You mean
changing.
Thursday?
Thursday, we'll have a ceremony changing our
Yeah, our
100-year
calendar.
calendar.
So I wrote a column for Substack. And by the way, a shameless plug here. Of course, this is Grit and Good News. We're on every Tuesday and Thursday from noon to 1 o'clock. We're live, but most people watch us on the recording or later so that they can catch it at their convenience. But both Jeff and I have content available under a subscription model on Substack.com under the brand Grit and Good News, where you can get Jeff's poems, you can get my columns, you can get the show, you can get audio versions of our content. You can also we have Sammy provides content from across the world that we think you will find interesting. So we invite you to become a member or a subscriber, $5 a month, which is, for most people, it's certainly affordable.
It's a lot of money. $5 a month,
Less than a burger.
coming out twice a week.
What
That's a
we're
lot of
finding is
money.
that most of the people are paying 54, that you get a break. So you get a 10% break if you sign up for the year. So I think the last several subscribers we've had have paid for the year in full. So we like that. Anyway, so I wrote a column for Great and Good News entitled Termites in the Foundation, the Subtle Erosion of America by the Liberal Left. before I start rambling about it, do you have any? Because you wrote a poem about it, right?
I did, and it was a very fun poem, and I wish I had it here with me. Uh, it was a fun poem to write because you know I tell you I've really enjoyed the experience of writing
Right. Yeah.
poems to to particular topics that you bring up because they're not necessarily things I would write a poem about,
Right.
and I try to focus on one area, and I focused really about corrosion and erosion and
Mm-hmm.
decay, and
Yeah.
that those are all progressive things that happen,
Right.
and they don't just happen overnight,
No, they
and
don't.
that's the same
That's the whole.
thing.
Yeah, the whole point, really.
That's the whole point of that.
So you think about, I've lived in I don't know how many homes in my life, and but by God's grace, I guess I don't know how I avoided termites. I think maybe an inspection here and there was a termite, one or two found, but nothing alarming or detrimental to the structure. But for those who have experienced termites, termites are the, I mean, they'll bring a house down, not in the blink of an eye.
Yeah,
It'll appear as though it's in the blink of an eye, but they've been at work for a long, 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 long time. And so the point of the column is to say, well, in terms of two political parties, it's my opinion that the liberal left has served this country in ways that a termites do what they do to a home. And there are five examples that I gave as to how that's happening. And there was for a long time. It's no different than bias. Bias for the longest period of time was if you said to any of the newspapers or the media companies I've worked for in America back 10 or 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago, if you would have said you guys are being biased, they would have had a conniption fit and would have done everything in their power to make sure that you knew that they were not biased. But over the past, I'd say 15 years, maybe 10, it's become less of a concern that they disguise their bias. So the bias, I mean, you talk about just consider any of them, both on the left and the right, although there aren't that many on the right in terms of shows on television. There are more radio stations and more talking heads on the radio that are conservative than liberal, but it's the opposite when it comes to broadcast and cable television. So, uh, but there is no, I mean, you consider MSNBC, CNN, any of the three major networks, and the list goes on. If I said to the average person out there who at least has some sense of politics in America, if I said, well, if you had to pick a political party and who they espouse or promote, MSNBC, 9.5 out of 10 people are going to say the Democrat Party or the liberal left. If you say to people, well, what about Fox? What do they espouse and who do they support? Well, most people are going to say the right,
hmm
conservative. Uh, uh, so, and none of them really push back on that. There's no attempt by any of these television stations or cable news, whatever, to disguise their bias. I would say, with respect to termites and the effect they have on a house, if you use as an analogy for what's going on in politics, uh, the work that has been done, the damage that's been done over the years was usually hidden. It was subtle. It was quiet.
right,
It was not apparent.
but
But now,
irreparable.
irreparable for sure, but now it's becoming more and more glaring. So you think about, we're going to talk about USAID here in a minute. So you think about what Doge has done. That was that's been hidden forever. You talk about the editing that's been done on television
Yeah,
stories. Those
that leads right where I was going because when you talk about everybody knows on the major cable news people, everybody knows which are the left and which are the right,
right,
and they make no apologies about it,
sure,
and they're frankly proud of it.
right,
Okay, but on your network news, they they try to appear that they're right down the middle, and
right,
there's nothing that they would ever say that they would never say, well, we're liberal leaning.
right. You're
But
right.
when you listen to the nightly news, which I do regularly, um, I hear it all the time. And when I pick up the Dallas Morning newspaper, I know it's a very liberal paper. I see it all the time,
Right.
and you got to take it with a grain of salt. And I was out of town recently, and I stayed in a household that watches. Other than if an important sporting event comes up, there's very few things that would get them on anything except their their Fox.
Yeah.
Cradle to grave.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's at the TV at 6 in the morning.
Is he
Every
really?
once in a while, he likes to on a commercial. He'll switch over the other way, just like you always talk about. Well, I do like to switch to. I don't even know the people that used to
Maddow.
Matt,
Yeah, on
but
MSNBC.
but they they don't make any
Yeah, I mean
attempt to
I don't
hide it.
think that's healthy. I think it's like taking bad medicine. It's not going to make you better per se, but it will make you more aware of what's going on from a counterpoint,
Yeah,
different viewpoint. And so, I mean, I think it gets a bit obnoxious. I know it does for me, but I like to know what the angle is for this network or that network or this person or that person. If you think about just to your network point, Scott Pelley,
right.
who's the anchor for one of them. I think it's the same one that's the 60 Minutes. So I don't
Yeah.
know who has 60 Minutes, but I think CBS. Um, Scott Pelley just gave the commencement speech to North Carolina, I think, University of North Carolina, and would hammer Trump the whole commencement speech. So there is no, it used to be if you had a guy like that, say 20 years ago, if you had a guy like that that was going to give a commencement speech at a college, particularly a major university, there would be nothing about politics in
Right.
there. And now all it is political.
And we've sparked Elizabeth's interest, and Sammy has handed her the mic.
Yes.
Has either one of you had an opportunity to watch on cable news, News Nation?
I'm aware of it and I've seen snippets, let's call it
It's
that.
terrific,
Yeah.
totally dedicated to taking a neutral position
Yeah.
in everything they report.
Yeah. I think, it's,
Thank you.
yeah, we need those what I would refer to as rest stops, so to speak, on a busy highway that can give us information. And certainly, I mean, I don't have any problem with any of them that will have counterpoint. If you're gonna give a something about the conservative side of things, then just provide a liberal side of things. I hired a liberal managing editor at the Sun when we started for the purposes of making sure that no one believed that we all thought the same way. Same way with us. It's that old thing, as I said before on the show, if two people think the same thing, only one of them is needed, which is the truth. But when it comes to what I believe the left has done, uh, and I'm not saying the right's perfect by any stretch, but I am saying that this damage that has been done to the structure of the country is now beginning to come into a more clear dimensions and you can see it better. So the things I'm talking about are, as I wrote in my column, the devaluation of responsibility through over reliance really on the government. I mean, Obama ushered in the era, kind of a modern era of reliance on the government. So all the way from cell phones to Social Security to whatever else, uh, there were people that found reliance on the government to be an acceptable thing in their life. When in reality, I think that does damage to a human life.
There was a time when that was very essential to actually saving our nation, I
Yeah,
believe, and
well,
that was
yeah.
under FDR.
Well, when
And
it was invented,
yeah,
so to speak, the
yeah,
reliance on Social Security and things like that.
and all the public works program that he had.
Yeah,
Had one the other day about the Golden Gate Bridge starting.
yeah,
I mean, so many dams, so many Tennessee Valley Authority, so many
yeah,
great things happened
right.
as a result of that,
Yeah.
and that pulled us out of what we needed.
So
But
it's
it's
the
not
over
that way
reliance
anymore.
is the over reliance
Right.
on it, and what is the purpose of it? The other second one was the corruption of language and thought. There used to be a time when we could just have a conversation and say words like uh uh freedom and uh tradition, and we could talk about i- a number of other things, and no ulterior motive, or not ulterior, alternate meaning was applied.
Right.
Uh, Today we can't do that, and that's where that book White Fragility came out that talks about how, in that author's opinion, white people struggle uh, with having a conversation with those of other races for fear that they're going to say the wrong thing. And I've experienced it, and I don't. I mean, God forbid I ever be accused of being racist, but I don't want to. I don't want to think I have to limit my language.
Right.
And then we have the undermining of the family, of course. We know that there's been that attempt, the relentless pursuit of what's called utopianism, which is the, to perf- perfection through government and progress. So let the government make things perfect for you, which is an oxymoron. And then the erosion of tradition in the name of progress. So, tearing down statues, changing holiday names, eliminating holidays, creating holidays. It's all so silly to me.
When did this Substack on this issue run? Was it
Yesterday.
yeah, that's what I thought.
So the column is getting a lot of play on it, but the column is again titled "Termites and the Foundation of the Subtle Erosion of America by the Liberal Left." You can go to Substack.com, written good news, and you will see it there. Of course, it's right there. Underneath it is your opinion column about the same subject.
And one of the another nice thing about the Substack is, I think it's one of the easiest ways to get to the show, because there's a link at the bottom to the most recent show. And when you go to Substack and you go to Grit and Good News, it's
Yeah,
just
it's
there.
right
You don't
there.
have to scroll. So you go to the bottom, there it is.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
that's our
That's a
last
good point.
commercial.
That's a good point. All right. I've got my random thoughts. I don't know what I did with them, so we'll just not worry about it right now. All right. So since we've got an abbreviated agenda, uh, let's talk about he said. So the USAID, we know that Doge has gone in and whether it was done in the right way or not is arguable. It's debatable. Certainly open to that. The idea, though, of saying we are going to get rid of what is obvious waste, abuse, and corruption with respect to these departments and these thousands upon thousands of people whose job it is essentially to give away money when it comes to USAID. This country needed that in huge ways, and we've talked about how many billions now are being either found, already been saved, or will be as a result of these changes. Well, a smart person, let me put it that way, named Brooke Nichols, she is listen to this title. She is a mathematician health modeler at Boston University.
I've never put those in a sentence together in
I
my
can't,
life.
well, and I can't spell, I can't, I don't know that I can spell, well, I guess I could, but I don't even know what that means. But Brooke Nichols,
Read it one more time.
a mathematician health modeler. So she's into projection to understanding what's going on, saying, okay, it's almost like an actuary, but
Okay.
actuaries are more they're dealing with more absolutes. This professor is someone who has taken Doge, what they've done with their cuts, specifically in this case USAID, and said that based on these cuts, 300 already, the way the media is telling it, 300,000 people have already died. What Brooke Nichols says is that there's nothing actual about that. It's a projection that based on these cuts, whether it be with uh, food or sustenance or uh, medical needs, whatever, that Doge, in her opinion, Doge has come in and made all these cuts that are going forward are likely going to result in thousands upon thousands upon thousands of death. So the media gets a hold of that. And so what does the media do? The media doesn't say it's a projection. The media says
You just left out that one little
300,000
word.
people
Yeah.
have died. Bono, uh, and I like his cool tinted glasses, but Bono in the column or in the story that we've attached to our agenda here, I don't know if Sammy has it up on the screen, is now uh, parroting the same thing. 300,000 people have died. That's not true, and it's a lie. So Joe Rogan and a few others have gone after Bono to say you're lying. Just tell the truth. Now, if there's truth to it, the projection, then we'll see. But shame on anyone saying 300,000 people have died when nobody has died.
I have an expression for those types of occurrences.
Yeah,
I call it over connecting the dot.
yeah,
Okay. And what defines a straight line? 2 points.
right.
Okay. You can't just take one. And if you don't have a definitive endpoint, you can't You
Yeah.
can't make the straight line.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. An
Yeah.
actuary says if you're Sammy's age and given what the state of Social Security today, given where things are headed, the actuary says, and I remember for me it was in 2026, and I'm like, 2026, I can't even fathom what the world. I can't even go out that far, and here we are almost. Um, but it said at 2000 you will retire given what were the laws then, you will retire in 2026 at 65 years old. And and here's what, you'll get
Yeah.
and all that. Um, so that usually comes in some way, form or fashion, close to it, the ballpark, but you end up getting about what the actuary said. In this case, this is an actuarial. It's similar, but it is even to her own admission. She says in that story, she says these are not facts. These are me saying, in terms of the 300,000 deaths, these are what I believe will happen. But the media leaves that out.
You
And
know,
Bono leaves that out.
one of the things that the actuaries have been right on for so long is the mortality rates for men and women, and consistently it doesn't change much. It's always that the women are going to live about 7 or 8 years longer than the men.
Right. Yeah.
But that's based on true history,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So there you have it. That's the he said. So I guess the question is, as we look back now, although it's still a whole lot more going on with Doge, because the only person that's left Doge is Elon Musk. The others are still at work. So the question for all of us is, one, can we be patient enough to see what the outcome is of Doge? Or are we going to get all rattled and upset? Just the same thing. It's the same concept with respect to tariffs. Are we going to freak out over tariffs before tariffs have the impact? And other things, the inflation, over the weekend, Besant, who is our Treasury Secretary, had a conversation with Margaret Brennan on one of the I think CNN, where she was talking about inflation and how tariffs are going to have a negative impact. And he said, Margaret, as we sit here right now, inflation has come down dramatically, and it continues to be on a trajectory of going down. Same thing with people, their take-home pay. So it's a matter of just being patient, let these things take its course. All right. That said, you don't have another poem, so we're into our
Today in history.
Today in History, and
Elizabeth and Sammy
Elizabeth's
are going
going
to
to
share a
join
mic,
us.
or she's going solo.
Oh, Sammy's letting her. Sammy cheats off me, Elizabeth, just so you know.
Okay, well,
Where's my
don't
pen?
feel compelled to answer, but this first one you may know a little bit about because of what it's about. Today in history, if you get it on the money, you get 1 point. If you don't, if you miss, you lose it. You got a 7 year range on either end. You got 14 years, and you get the bonus if you get it on the money. So we open with today in history. The last confirmed specimens of the great auk, AUK, a flightless bird, were killed on Eldey, Eldey Island near Iceland. Did you know where that was at all? Okay. You got a guess?
No, I'm going to say 1948.
I said 1905. You got one or not? 1844.
Yeah. How am I supposed to? How are we supposed to
I
know
know.
that?
Lately it's hard on these early ones, especially if they're not in the Revolution or the
Yeah,
Civil War.
that's
Here we
right.
go. The French liner SS Normandy set a record on its maiden voyage, arriving in New York after crossing the Atlantic in just count 'em, 4 days.
So I'm going to say 1917.
1944.
1935. You were
Ooh,
almost there. You
almost
can be
there,
within
Elizabeth.
7. Edward, the Duke of Windsor, who had abdicated the British throne, married Wallis Simpson in a private ceremony in Mons, Monts, Mons, France.
1953.
1952.
1937.
Oh, that's not right. That's not fair. They got to spread these years out better. 0-3.
You know, I struggle through this not 2 times a week, 7 times a week.
If I ever
But
think I'm smart, we'll just take one of these, and that'll bring me back down to earth.
in altercation, listen closely on this. I was so far off trying to figure out maybe what was happening in the country at this time, which I wish I would have done. An altercation between U.S. Navy sailors and young Mexican Americans on the streets of Los Angeles led to several days of clashes known as the Zoot Suit Riots, during which white mobs attacked Mexican Americans across the city, injuring more than 150.
Zoot suit is a clue.
It is a clue.
1973.
1977.
1943. What?
Zoot suit in 43.
Yeah, but here's the deal. If you got sailors running around LA, those those guys are probably on their way to Hawaii.
Yeah,
You know,
I
it's
don't know.
what
How many of these do we have? How many more?
we got. You got 3 more
All
chances
right.
to
Well, I'm
shine.
guaranteed. Oh, I got to hit a bonus to have a chance to break even. Dang. All right.
During the Gemini 4 spaceflight, astronaut Edward H. White became the first American to walk in space.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
1974.
I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say it was before Armstrong. 67.
67, and the bonus is in effect.
Booyah!
And you're
Hey,
within 7. Good job.
booyah! Yeah,
Good job.
yeah.
All right. Scrambling to catch up here. Chinese American troops entered Beijing's Tiananmen Square to begin a crackdown on student led pro democracy demonstrations.
Oh my gosh, 1989.
The bonus is again in effect. Good job.
Thank you. I told you I wasn't gonna go down.
Well, now you know it. That's your guess.
1989.
The bonus is in effect. The bonus is in effect. Sometimes it works
Elizabeth ain't
that
no
way.
dummy.
All right. Former heavyweight boxing champion Muhammad Ali, whose athletic feats and activism placed him among the most revered athletes of all time, died in Scottsdale, Arizona at the age of 74.
I'm gonna say 2020.
2015.
2016.
Oh, very good. Man, it's been that long, huh?
Now,
5-4, baby.
I took a 4 and 3. You weren't keeping in track, but I know you got at least the bonus plus 1. You got 3 or 4. Tell me this. What about? I was trying to get some reference points, and I was remembering that he carried the torch at
Yeah,
the Atlanta
he
Olympics.
sure
And
did.
you were living there then,
1996.
96, and you sent us a Waterford crystal Christmas ornament. Or maybe mom just bought one that year, and I ended up with it.
I also sent a certificate where I'd purchased a brick in Olympic Park in
Nice.
downtown Atlanta.
Okay. You didn't
Is it
get to
full
any
memento?
of did you get to any events?
Yes, I did get to a couple.
Good.
Mhm.
Memorable?
Uh, a swimming event at Georgia Tech and rhythmic gymnastics at UGA.
Nice.
Yeah.
You ever been to the Olympics?
No, we got them
I-
coming up.
I haven't either.
Winter Olympics. No, wait. Summer Olympics are next year in LA, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'd go to
Even
a
year.
winter before I'd go to a summer. I'd go to either one though.
All right.
All right.
So there you have it. We have a great news segment to show you before we close out one of these shows. And so we're going to make a point to do it on Thursday because we've had this thing on the agenda for five episodes and we haven't gotten there yet because we talked too much. But we're going to have it Thursday. So anyway, thank you for being with us. Thank you, Elizabeth, for being here. Enjoy Waxahachie and have a great time tonight. We will be back on Thursday at noon. Of course, again, go to substack.com search Grit and Good News with the ampersand, and you will find us there. Subscribe for $5 a month, and you will get two, well, a newsletter on Monday, a newsletter on Friday with a lot of content in both. And we think you will enjoy it. So
And before
thank you for being here.
our closing comment, we sure appreciate you being here, Elizabeth. You really spiced it up
You
for us.
certainly prettied up the show.
Yeah. And remember, have a great day and put a smile on somebody's face.
There you go.